I'm gonna be honest, when I was a wee little Fonzo, I wasn't into Pokemon. At all. I just didn't get the appeal of the franchise and why it was so popular. A series of video games that consist of you catching monsters that fit in your pocket and using them for battle? Little Dumbo me thought that sounded dumb. Then again, I was the same loser who grew up with Power Rangers and Thomas the Tank Engine. I would always see my friends in school playing the card game and talking about the video games, but I could just never get into the craze that was Pokemon. Fast forward to an older, slightly more open-minded Fonzo. I decided to watch the XY anime early in 2019 out of sheer curiosity. I was hooked, and it was sort of my transition to getting interested in Pokemon. And when I saw the first trailer for Pokemon Sword and Shield while walking to school, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of excited. Playing a Pokemon game for the first time on a Nintendo system that I was loving, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, the build up to Pokemon Sword and Shield wasn't pleasant to say the least. Ever since fans got the news that half the Pokemon lineup would be cut, a lot of people were disappointed, and understandably so. Game Freak's reason for this was to work on new models and animations for the Pokemon so the game could look its best. And that was a fucking lie. However, I felt as if I couldn't have my own opinion on the matter, since as a newcomer I personally wasn't affected by all of this. But I will say I completely understand people's frustration, and they're not wrong for feeling this way. What I do think is wrong is making other people who are excited for the games feel terrible for feeling that way, which a lot of fans did. Everyone argued and it was getting exhausting to watch. But my slight excitement and curiosity remained until the game finally released in November, and I got to play Sword and Shield around the end of December, with me getting the Shield version. So since Sword and Shield was my introduction to Pokemon games, did it hook me into the series? No, it sucks. So we start off in a Pokemon Stadium where we get introduced to Tony Stark over here, and he explains how Galar, the region the game takes place in, is a wonderful place for Pokemon and their trainers. It is then we get introduced to the undefeated champion named Leon, who shows off the ability of Dynamaxing with his Charizard. But who cares about that? It's time to be the very best like no one ever was! Here we meet our main character and our main rival Hop, who for some reason keeps calling me Dickwad, and takes you to go meet Leon, who turns out to be Hop's big brother. We get our starter Pokemon from Leon and embark on a journey to win 8 gym badges and compete in the Pokemon League to become the champion of Galar. From what I know, this is pretty much the standard for Pokemon in terms of story, correct me if I'm wrong, but while you're doing that, bigger plot stuff happens involving Tony Stark trying to bring back what is known as the Darkest Day. The Darkest Day is in the form of a storm, which makes Pokemon Dynamax and Gigantamax, but as a side effect makes Pokemon go crazy and pretty much Dynamaxes them out of their own will. Tony Stark wants to do this because he fears the shortage of Dynamax energy in Galar, which was predicted to happen 1,000 years since the last time the Darkest Day happened, will eventually come to be true and wants to change the future by bringing it back. This event is caused by the legendary Pokemon Eternatus, who is the source of Dynamaxing, and it is defeated by the 2 legendaries of this game, Zacian and Zamazenta, by the end of the main campaign. I'm gonna be completely honest here, the story is pretty weak. I'm not expecting much from Pokemon, but I didn't find the main conflict particularly interesting, and Tony Stark doesn't serve as a great villain in my eyes. His motivation is there, but other than that, there's nothing else to him, no personality or anything, really. Throughout your adventure, Sonya is researching about this event and gives you little plot details to you when you find stuff like artwork of the heroes of Galar. I don't mind the idea of a storm causing Pokemon to Dynamax out of their will and causing chaos, but I don't think the game really fleshes out this concept to make it engaging enough for me to care. While the story is pretty weak, I think what somewhat makes up for it are the characters you meet on your journey. This game has a pretty sizable cast of characters that you'll encounter on your journey, consisting of gym leaders you battle, rivals, etc. I particularly liked Leon, who's a pretty chill dude despite being the unbeatable champion, but still has a cocky and arrogant side, and apparently is pants with directions. 2 other characters I really liked were Sonya, who is the granddaughter and assistant of Professor Magnolia, and Piers, who turns out to be the captain of Team Yell and the Dark-type gym leader. Sonya researches about the Darkest Day throughout the story, and eventually when she is present for the events that transpire near the climax, she publishes a book about said events and takes over as professor. Also, it's said that she and Leon were rivals before Sonya decided to drop out of the league, so that's pretty neat. Piers refuses to Dynamax in gym battles and locates his gym away from a power spot. He even helps you later on during the post-game when Dynamax Pokemon made by these 2 idiots are on the loose. One rival you meet on your journey is Bede, who I love simply for the fact that even when you beat him constantly, he still trash talks you like he's the best. Hell, he becomes the fairy-type gym leader later on when Opal decides to retire and becomes a slightly better person when we kick his ass one final time.
Oh my god, he's back. A moment if I may, does anyone here
By far though, I'd say my favorite character in this game is Hop. I know, very controversial, but hear me out. Hop starts out as someone who looks up to his big brother highly and wants to live up to his legacy. He keeps on claiming that he's going to be the greatest trainer, but after getting his ass kicked several times by you and Bede, who claims that Hop is living off of other people's successes and not his own, he starts to feel extremely defeated, and the stuff Bede says really gets to him. After losing the league to you in the semifinals, it's the final nail in the coffin that maybe becoming the champion isn't his true destiny and he needs to find his own future instead of following his brother's. After he helps saves Galar and forms a connection with Zamazenta or Zacian, depending on which version you have, he claims he wants to help Pokemon all the time and become a professor, and with that he becomes Zanya's assistant. Hop's journey is all about finding himself and seeing if he truly has what it takes to make something out of himself. It is shown in his house that his parents are really proud of what Leon has done and have all of Leon's accomplishments, but not even a picture of Hop is anywhere to be seen. Maybe Hop felt like his parents weren't proud of him at all and didn't know what his goal in life was. So he tries to do what Leon does, but realizes that maybe he's meant for something more that fits with his own skills when he realizes that he actually is skilled at something. I'll admit, half of that is probably theorizing, but I still love Hop's arc, and I'll admit I can sort of relate to the guy in some ways. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and while I think his character could have been expanded a little more, I think he's still one of the best characters in the game. Team Yellow's fucking lame, but no one gives a shit about the story, right?
That is false.
As I've said before, you're on your journey to catch and train Pokemon, get 8 gym badges, and become the champion of whatever region you're in. And to my knowledge, that's pretty much the formula of each game. I'd say this formula works okay. It's a pretty linear adventure. You just go through some routes which have small grassy fields and other sections like mines where you can catch and fight other trainers to get to the next town which will have the gym you need to participate in. While that works perfectly fine, I would have liked the towns much better if they had more to do in them. Maybe some fun optional Pokemon related side quests or simply making the towns have much more scale would have done the trick to make traveling through them a little more engaging. Though Whiteon and Hammerlock come pretty close in the latter department. This is the opposite of the wild area in Sword and Shield, which might be the best thing about the game in general. You get to explore this large open area full of Pokemon you can catch, and I love how many Pokemon there are to see here. Some will be running around in the field or be out in the open just doing their own thing. Plus the game gives you this area at the beginning so you can always keep coming back and catch more Pokemon when you're stronger, which will be necessary since a decent amount of Pokemon will be levels above you at the beginning, so the stronger you get, the more Pokemon you can catch in the wild area. Sadly though, whenever I go through the wild area, it always makes me think what a more open Pokemon adventure would be like. The DLC seems to be sort of answering that question, but for the next titles, I think Pokemon games should take a bigger and grander approach. The actual gym battles you participate in are also just okay. They are usually under one type of Pokemon, so I had to choose which of mine would have the advantage, but that also made the gym battles extremely easy. Well, besides this bitch with her fucking razor shell. Still, that doesn't make them bad by any means, and at the very least, the final battle with the champion was admittedly pretty challenging for me. Some gyms will have a gym mission you need to complete before having the actual battle with the gym leader, and while easy, are still alright. I particularly like the one which took advantage of the Switch's HD rumble, in which you walk along a path and make sure you don't fall into a pit depending on how much your controller rumbles when you're near one. While the actual formula to the adventure left a lot to be desired, I will say this however. Sword and Shield made me finally get the appeal of Pokemon. Catching and training Pokemon is so fun in Sword and Shield. Getting a starter felt so awesome because I truly felt like I was beginning a journey. I picked Scorbunny on my first playthrough due to his high energy hooking me into his personality, but Sobble is definitely my second favorite. He's just so cute. Throughout my adventure, I felt like I was truly building a team, getting stronger, and connecting more with my Pokemon, which is very important for a game like this. First time playing Sword and Shield, building up my team was so fun, mainly because whenever I saw a Pokemon that was right up my alley design-wise, I would stick with them, make the most out of their abilities, and help them grow. My team from my first playthrough ended up consisting of Cinderace, the fully evolved form of Scorbunny, Corviknight, Obstagoon, Arcanine, Mudsdale, and Raichu. Honestly, I don't see any other team I build up in games I play later on topping these guys, because for some reason these Pokemon struck a chord with me. Cinderace has a really sick design, not to mention a sick ass move, and Raichu is just so cute, look at her go. Also look at Corviknight, he goes from a tiny and cute Rookidee to a giant and edgy bird. I should also mention that a lot of the Galar Pokemon look pretty good. If there's one thing that will stick with Pokemon, it's the cool designs for each one. There's some oddballs, but even those have their own charm to them. Appleton is ironically and unironically amazing, but Pokemon like Toxtricity on the other hand, what the fuck? Now when it came to my team, I always felt like I was creating a bond with all my members and building up their strength and power through battles. I will admit, I thought it would take me a while to really get the combat of Pokemon, since each one is categorized in different types and each type will be at an advantage or disadvantage depending on what Pokemon you battle against. While I wouldn't say I've mastered it, as I hear the competitive scene is really strong, the basic combat is very easy to understand. A lot of type matchups make a lot of sense. Water is super effective against fire, fire is super effective against ice, electric is super effective against water. Plus after fighting a Pokemon once, if you counter it again, the game will let you know what moves are more effective against it. It's pretty easy to learn, but I could also see it requiring a bit of strategy in the supposedly more challenging previous games. I would also like to add how glad I am that random encounters don't exist in Sword and Shield. Instead, Pokemon will move around in the grass, and even when that little icon appeared but I didn't see the Pokemon, I could still avoid it if I wanted to and go at my own pace. Battling was my choice. While I like RPGs in general, nothing annoys me more than getting interrupted completely out of nowhere just to have a battle. I get that it could help you level up your stats more, but it always interrupted the flow for me. Sometimes after I got finished with a random encounter in an RPG, I couldn't take 5 steps without having another one. I like that Let's Go and Sword and Shield made catching and battling Pokemon my choice, and I hope that continues in future titles. Speaking of stats, your Pokemon team shares XP, which means no matter what, your whole team will gain XP when you finish a battle. And depending on how much your Pokemon were used in the battle, some will grow a little more than others. I really liked how whenever my Pokemon leveled up more, I always gained stronger moves that I could give to them. It always felt rewarding just to gain some new moves I could use in battle, and it truly felt like my team was getting stronger. Though I was happy to find out that even if I didn't like some of the moves I earned from my team, I could use technical machines to teach my Pokemon a move depending on if they're compatible or not with said TM, so that's a great option. It was also fun seeing what the evolved forms of my Pokemon looked like. Not all of them hit the mark, but they were still cool to witness nonetheless. Dynamaxing is introduced in Sword and Shield, in which your Pokemon grow in size and their moves are replaced with Dynamax moves. It's pretty much the power-up in this game, like Mega Evolutions and Z moves, and it works just fine. It feels more mindless than even the base game, as all your Pokemon's moves become one strong move depending on the typing, but it's still nice mindless fun either way. Some Pokemon have Gigantamax forms, which make them have a crazier appearance than normal Dynamaxing. Some look cool and others look really wacky. Dynamaxing is also used for max raid battles, which you can partake in by going into a den with a beam of light in the wild area. These are pretty much boss battles you could do either with CPUs or people online, the latter being the only way you should do raid battles since the CPUs are really dumb. I find raid battles somewhat fun, but when their shields are put up sometimes up to 6 hits, beating them can feel like a chore. But still, just grab some friends and it'll be a fun time trying to beat these guys together. These Pokemon can be caught when defeated, and you can earn rewards that make your Pokemon stronger, whether they're items you can give to a specific Pokemon to raise their stats, or XP candies, which level up your team faster and takes away some of the grind. Battling Pokemon overall is very fun, whether you're fighting and catching normally, or Dynamaxing and battling with your buddies to catch Dynamax Pokemon. But I need a break sometimes, damn it!
Hello there.
You eventually earn the ability to build up a little camp for your Pokemon to hang out in whenever you want. Can I say how much I love this? In the Pokemon camp, your team gets to play around the field. You can play ball with them or wiggle a feather for them to play with. Your Pokemon will talk to you, and throughout the game, they will have little conversations and interactions with each other, form friendships, and even tell you that they become good friends and stuff. You can cook curry by getting berries from trees and getting different types of food from these peeps. And your Pokemon will grow more affectionate towards you every time you cook something good and play with them. Forming friendships with my Pokemon and then making connections with each other really made me become attached to my team. I always see reviews where people question the point of the camp, since you could always heal Pokemon by just going to the Pokemon Center instead of cooking curry. Cooking curry and playing with your Pokemon helps you grow a bigger connection to them, and due to that, sometimes during combat, your Pokemon will either avoid an attack or hold on for a little longer when they're about to die. I think it's a cute diversion when you're not in combat or catching Pokemon. Your team has adorable little animations within the camp and show a lot of distinct personality from each other, which helps Pokemon feel more than just video game characters you collect. And here we have Pancham walking around the camp as if he doesn't know where the fuck he wants to go. Hey Drizile, how you doing? Okay, well fuck you too. Stop arguing, you two. Yes! While we're on the topic of animations, I think I should give my thoughts on the presentation of this game. Honestly, I'm heavily conflicted. See, the jump from handheld to home consoles meant Game Freak needs to kick it up a notch when it came to visuals and aesthetics. On one hand, I really like how lighting is used, very colorful and vivid depending on where you are, which can help for areas like Battlelia, which looks stunning all things considered. While I complained about the towns sort of blending together, some like Hammerlock do look incredibly nice and sometimes add a real sense of scope to the game. On the other hand, texturing is where Sword and Shield backfires. We all know about the tree, yeah, it looks awful. But even aside from that, hilltops and grass textures look pretty ugly, which can break the immersion of traveling through the world. It's mainly noticeable in the wild area. I praised it from a gameplay standpoint, but visually it looks very muddy in terms of texturing, not to mention has some bad draw distancing. It sucks because I see the art style they're going for. The only problem is everything is very unpolished. I don't know if it's due to laziness or if Game Freak wasn't given enough time to polish out some things, but given that a Pokemon game usually releases every year nowadays, I'm guessing it's the latter. Of course, I have to mention the battle animations during combat, which people have ripped to shreds. However, I think the situation is more complicated than people realize. On one hand, from what I know, animations from previous games are reused, therefore they look rather cheap for what's supposed to be a Pokemon game on a home console. Seriously, how does hopping equate to a kick? But on the other hand, for some of the new Pokemon, we have animations like
And this? And how could I forget this?
To be fair, these are signature moves that were made from the ground up specifically to certain Pokemon, and I'm not saying that every animation needs to look that good, but it still looks inconsistent compared to the other ones when it's shown Game Freak can make stunning animations for the combat, but instead reuse animations from the 3DS games. Not to mention, even though these are a bit unpolished as well, the animations for Pokemon in the camp are honestly so charming and shows off each Pokemon's personality and quirks perfectly. It's just inconsistent, and if Sword and Shield was given more time in the oven, maybe the visuals could look a lot better as a whole. In the end, I think that's what Sword and Shield truly needed, more time in development in order to polish up the visuals, maybe have the story be a little more interesting along with the inclusion of voice acting, and make the game have more scope to be the best Pokemon game it could have been on a home console. That being said, despite its flaws, I had a pretty good time with Sword and Shield. Catching and training Pokemon for the first time felt amazing, and it finally made me get the appeal of the series. Building up a team of Pokemon I liked was so fun since I, in the end, didn't know what I was getting into. Even though the game has noticeable issues, I think a lot of the good stuff I talked about made up for those things and made Sword and Shield worth playing, and I can officially call myself a fan of Pokemon. But now that I've played a Pokemon game and very into the series, I see a Pokemon game that could be so much more. The world of Pokemon appeals to a lot of people because the sheer concept is very imaginative. I think the anime does a fantastic job showing how magical this world is, but Sword and Shield feels like it's only scratched the surface. Imagine running around in a more open-ended world filled to the brim with Pokemon to catch, and breathtaking towns with people and Pokemon living together in harmony. This would not only encourage people to buy the game, but would finally feel like that grand Pokemon adventure people could go on in the franchise. But that doesn't change the fact that Sword and Shield has still gotten me highly interested in this franchise, and I think it's capable of a whole lot more.